of order, Mr. Mayor.
Order, Councilor Glen.
Can we move up communication item 1 to this in order, because instead of keeping Mr. Fournier around until that your time.
We've already moved on to communications.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You want to begin the discussion?
Yes, please. Thank you, Mr. Fournier, for your report. It was welcome to our meeting. I know I have some, Mr. Mayor, the comments I have and some questions may take over 3 minutes, so if you can bear with me.
I've got a slow one.
Good. As I said to you, welcome to our meeting. Any of my comments are not questioning your qualifications or anything. What they're due is to get clarification and to hopefully move this file along so we can correct it. So I respect the work that you do, and it's not an easy task because coming down, correcting behavior, et cetera, it's not always easy, especially when it's ingrained behavior. And as you talked about, the intent of the act is for transparency, and transparency is something that we all support around here. We have no intention of ever going into in-camera without having the proper credentials, up to and including the last part of the section they put in for training and educating of members. When I saw that at first, I said, this could be a very an avenue to open that would be you could abuse the in-camera session, because that's very vague and gray. So, you know, I questioned that myself when I first was introduced to that.
May I make a comment on that, or
yeah.
should I wait
go ahead.
till you're finished?
Go ahead.
In discussions with other municipalities, I found your concern sits on the top of their list with respect to that item G, I think it is, I can't remember in there. And many municipalities in the procedural bylaw have chosen actually to remove it as an exemption, or if they are going to hold an education and training session, it's done in public.
Thank you.
Okay.
I questioned that ever since I saw it. Now, just from an investigation process, is it normal that you would not discuss the rationale for moving this with the mover and the seconder of the motion? Because I was surprised when I saw this, and I was the seconder for the motion, so I was a participant in this, and I was surprised because basically to maybe understand the rationale behind it for seconding it, or the other gentleman that moved it, to explain our rationale and part of the education process more than anything.
You raise a good point, and I would consider it as an oversight on my part. On the other hand, I felt that the interviews that I had conducted and the records that I had reviewed had provided sufficient sort of information to draw a conclusion from that. Now, yes, I could have benefited from sitting down with the mover and seconder. I won't deny that.
And it helps me because people call me the procedural guy around the council table, and because I call it point of order.
Yeah.
So if as Vince Lombardi used to say, it's not a mistake unless you repeat it. So it's all educational in some respects. So moving forward, well, the first thing is we recognize that the Waterfront Committee and the other committees they're boards. There's no question. We talked about procedural bylaws being followed in all our committees at all times. One of the unfortunate parts is that very seldom do we ever get public at our meetings, even though we've put all our committees on the website, et cetera, and maybe not the times, et cetera, but that we just don't get public at our meetings. So a lot of our committees, currently, we get a lot of in-camera stuff that takes place. So, I mean, there's it could be a real owner's task here for us to comply with some of the requirements under this. And as I say, we don't get public at meetings. It's a rarity. But moving forward, what would you do in similar circumstances? Like if this is day one and you're at the meeting and this person brings up an issue that he says is confidential and timely because of the, all the reasons that you gave earlier, how would you proceed with that? if we didn't know what the presentation was, so we had to assume that he's given us accurate information that's timely, and that there's information there that could fit the criteria for in-camera discussions.
Just to go back a little bit, what was clear in terms of preparing the agenda was between staff and the delegation in this instance, there was no hint whatsoever that there would be a necessity for a closed meeting of any sort, okay, from
Prior to
the meeting. And then I also understand, I have a copy of actually the presentation notes by the delegation that attended the meeting as well, which was distributed to everybody at the beginning of the meeting, as I understand that. But to get to your question, I think in this case, with the with the experience that I've gained being a closed meeting investigator as well as a staff or municipal person, I would have asked the chair, as a staff person, saying that, Madam Chair or Mr. Chair, could we take a moment to take a look at whether or not we really should be moving into camera in this instance? And let's debate an amendment to the agenda on that particular point, so that the public at least has a sense that there's proper due course taking place. It's not uncommon when you produce an agenda to have to amend it. Something happens, can happen, potentially between the time it's produced and the time you actually deal with the matter. The whole point of Section 239 is to make sure it's done in a transparent way. Mm-hmm. Okay, and that's what's the observation I make in this case.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Now, for the process for our committees, I know going forward you talk about education, but I think there has to be preparation for agenda items, etc., for all our committees, because as I said, a lot of them do go. We have their in-camera items dealing with a number of the criteria under in-camera. So I would be interested to maybe get a recommendation from you, as well as this particular case, on what you would recommend going forward for all our committees as far as advertising agendas, et cetera, et cetera.
I would be happy to work through your clerk on that particular piece, again, as part of our discussions that we've had already, and just, again, to provide that as part of the service related to this report. All right, I'm happy to work on that. What I found is that, and it was the committee adjustment file that started, as I said, started to open up this door. What I found was even many municipalities, even small ones like Rideau Lakes Township, near the town of Sioux Falls, for example, have now taken their committee agendas and actually modeled them very carefully after the council agenda. If they have a closed session provision in there, so if there is something to be discussed, it's identified, it's there.
So that all comes through the clerk's department? Well,
I think that you can't possibly, in this case, am I correct that there were something like 18 standing committees added in 2012?
I'm not sure of the exact number, it may be more than that.
Maybe even more than that.
And there's some committees that are added.
That's
besides that.
In addition. Okay, I think the first thing is to screen those entities to make sure those that fall under the local board definition are identified quickly. Mm-hmm. The staff resources assigned to it, you can't, there's only so many things a clerk can do, or the deputy clerk, or the acting clerk, whatever. If there are staff resources assigned to that committee, those staff resources, either both managerial and administrative support, should also be acquainted with those requirements, so that you begin the process of making everyone aware of what's required.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Fournier, for your